Hello everyone, my name is Neil Shand, Chief Executive of the National Beef Association, and before I start I would just like to thank Boehringer for organising this webinar and all things BVD. So I'm going to link the National Beef Association to a project in England called BVD Free and talk a bit about how we pulled it all together. And probably the most important bit to emphasise is collaboration on how we can achieve things if we all work together. So firstly, who am I? As I've already said, Chief Executive of the National Beef Association. I'm also Vice Chairman at the moment of BVD Free England, and I'm a member of the Premium Cattle Health Scheme Advisory Board. PCHS is one of the licensed health scheme providers in the UK that are authorised by CHECS, which is a Cattle Health Certification Standards Group, which issue licenses to allow health schemes to ascertain health information per breeds and per herds in the UK. So, who are the NBA? And I'm not going to overly dwell on the National Beef Association, but we are a charitable organisation. We represent the voice of our industry and challenge policymakers on changes for the benefit of our industry in terms of efficiency and health. And we provide technical services and advice to our memberships to support their businesses. And without the support of our members, our work would be basically impossible. Our main aims are to identify and promote the highest possible levels of best practice throughout the production chain, and within that, achieve a return that allows quality, welfare and standards in the food supply chain to rise. This, I believe, is one of our most important statements, and that is to raise cattle health standards in the UK. And other bits and pieces that we're involved in, developing beef eating, promote the healthy benefits of red meat in a healthy diet, sustainably produced, improve and widen the scope of beef labelling to the benefit of our consumers and all customers so that transparency is fully available and clear. Identify and promote environmental benefits of grazing cattle on challenging landscapes, maintain cattle in the uplands, make sure our producers and members, are receiving a return that is profitable and allows the countryside to remain in function. I would say at this point that the UK is a very beautiful place, and it doesn't get that way by accident. It's the big garden is very well tended by our farmers. We want to improve the standards in management, transport, slaughter and treatment of beef cattle in general, and include quality and safety of beef by educating farmers, vets, auctioneers, hauliers, producers, etc. BVD had already been identified in some other countries within the UK some years before BVD Free was launched. And it was hoped that BVD Free England would be the beginning of the end of the disease in England, which would go on to contribute to the elimination of the disease across the whole of the United Kingdom. It's well known that BVD causes huge commercially financial pain on beef cattle producers, and the disease is initially focused on beef producing units, as in seed stock plants or suckler herds, rather than big finishers. It's possibly accepted that finishing units, if we get the elimination part right, will never experience any major hiccups in relation to BVD. So BVD Free was an industry-led program consisting of the NBA and National Farmers Union, along with almost every breed society that was keen to be involved. There was a lot of collaboration at the very beginning, and a huge amount of support from auctioneers and markets. Just the whole industry in England pulled together to create BVD Free, launched in 2016, and supported with some funding through the Rural Development Programme for England under a scheme called Stamp It Out, which I'll talk a little bit more about on the next slide. But BVD Free has always been of the opinion that at some point in the future we would need to change the voluntary programme into legislation or a mandatory scheme to be able to complete the final stages of BVD elimination. It's been a very successful scheme to date, and the collaboration between everyone has been huge, but it does, to be able to finish the job, we'll need eventually in the end some kind of government stipulation. So Stamp It Out was created through some funding, as I've mentioned, from the Rural Development Programme in England. And this farming fund allowed on-farm visits to be made, and these were created, again, where collaboration was important. Farmers invited their neighbours, the vets' time would be covered, and TB check testing took place on the farm where the meeting took place, or in several local farms, and to basically see what elements of disease were present on holdings, and see if further investigation would be needed to fund what we called a PI hunt. I think check testing is where blood testing is taken from groups of animals to identify if there's any BVD antibody in the herd, and if the herd is free of vaccine, and any antibody would show that there has been exposure to a PI or some form of disease transfer through biosecurity issues or similar. So there are 5 steps that within BVD-free that herds can take to get towards their test negative status. It is a fairly straightforward process initially with registering with BVD-free through the website. Moving on to contacting the lab to upload any historic results, and continued testing as per check test criteria. To get a herd status, 2 sets of test results required to be collated in the lab, and step 4 of the process is to complete the BVT test negative herd status form, and then review the BVD free test negative form annually. Okay, so we continue the challenge towards a BVD free status, and once registered with BVD Free England, following 2 years of testing, a herd will be assigned a status. When individual animals are tested, results will be uploaded and visible on the database immediately, and you could get an individual animal test along with the status of a herd in the future. Check's BVD accreditation is recognised within the UK as the highest herd status available. I touched on the Check scheme earlier. They are the licensing body above all the health scheme providers. Checks don't actually operate health schemes, they just provide licenses to those to operate under very high standards. And the Check's accreditation level is the highest level of BVD status that can be attained in the UK. Across all countries at the moment. BVD herd status comes with its advantages of being able, to sell breeding stock with a potentially higher value. And for those herds that are serious of eliminating all endemic disease, I think it's important to start a little bit of risk-based trading and people being considerate of what they buy, especially as they start to eradicate disease from the herd. So within BVD free, cattle holding numbers returning a non-registered status mean the holding has not been registered with the BVD scheme, and it allows people to select who and where to buy their cattle from. A registered herd is a status applied to herds that come under one of the following: that are testing but have not yet required 2 consecutive years of negative tests, that have tested for BVD and shown signs of exposure to the disease, where the test results have expired or test results have subsequently been, or no test results have been found, which have ever tested for BVD. I think it's worth at this point just saying that there has been some complications throughout the last 15 to 16 months because of the ongoing human endemic disease, which has resisted or restricted rather than resisted some of the availability of laboratory testing, and some veterinary routine work has been scaled back for public health reasons. So it has had a little bit of an impact. However, moving on, BVD Free recommends that test negative herds, as I've said, should only bring in animals from a BVD Free registered herd on their farm, or animals that have been individually tested and proven negative for BVD virus. If your herd has been given a registered status by BVD following the 2 years of testing, this indicates that your herd you're registered but not free. It means you've been exposed to the virus. You may have PI animals, or again, it may just be a biosecurity thing with bought-in cattle, which can carry in the disease if not isolated before mixing with your own herd. So a test negative herd status, herds that have completed 2 consecutive years of testing under the scheme can be assigned a BVD-free test negative herd status. When a lab uploads the results to the database, the farmer and their vet can submit an application to BVD-free requesting a test negative status, and that can be found. It's based on the results of the samples, obviously, and can be found on BVD-free's website. I don't think anyone should underestimate the significant cost of BVD to the beef sector. Various figures have been quoted over the years, but it's said that a 100 cow suckler herd can lose in excess of £10,000 over 10 years with continued circulation of BVD. I would probably say that in the last year the beef price has risen by almost 20%, so you can add more to that value. It's a lot of money in an industry that is often squeezed for low margins. A lot of the BVD elimination programs were led by some of the Scandinavian countries in the early 90s and had proven to be very successful. BVD Free England has built on experience from national elimination programs in Europe, but also closer to home, and watched as firstly Scotland, then Northern Ireland, and the whole island of Ireland now have their own BVD eradication programs, which are fully legislated. And so far, BVD Free is and will continue, at least for the next 12 months, to be a voluntary scheme. The key aim is to ensure that PIs are identified and removed for slaughter as quickly as possible, actually. And there is a lot of argument, perhaps, within mandatory schemes how best that is dealt with. My personal opinion is that any future legislationary option in England should give a time period to allow people to deal with PIs and not make them have a zero value overnight, because that will discourage participation. I think the success that we've had with BVD Free, which is highlighted now in these numbers, is due to everyone collaborating and pulling together very strongly. So here we have BVD England's free report, valid at the end of April 2021. And I just want to highlight on the numbers that are already highlighted in yellow. So the breeding cattle in the scheme as a percentage of the total English cattle is 40.9%. I think that's a phenomenal target to reach under a voluntary initiative, and again shows the power that if everyone pulls in the same direction, what actually can be achieved. So total number of tests between the 30th April 20 and the 30th of April 2021. The reason I've highlighted that is we know that there has been some bumps and hiccups due to veterinary availability and other issues to do with the COVID pandemic, but we still managed in that period to do 240,000 plus tests, which I think is testament to everybody's enthusiasm to eradicate the disease. And the total number of holdings recording at least one test in the last 12-month period is 2,222. And this couldn't be done without the enthusiasm of BVD Free board and all those involved in trying to rid England of this disease. Now, I've already touched a little bit on legislation. I'm going to put what I believe are positive reasons for legislation, and we'll follow that with some negative reasons, but they're not negative for legislation, they're negative for other reasons. Clearly, you can improve animal health and welfare, protect negative farms, and protect the reputation of English agriculture, and bring England into alignment with the rest of the UK. It's a personal challenge of my own and the National Beef Association and BVD Free that we eventually get full legislation in England to bring it in line with the rest of the UK. Negative reasons for legislation. There are no negative reasons that are not linked to positivity. We will always find, without proper legislation, that farmers will be selling PI animals through markets, infecting potentially hundreds of animals in large geographical parts of the country. There will always be a small number of people that resist even mandatory rules to eradicate disease, and that can be seen in some of the other countries that are slowly unwinding or winding up their eradication program, and pockets of resistance comes even sometimes even in regional areas. But that overall, there is absolutely no negative reason for not having a legislative program to rid England of BVD and line it up with the rest of the UK. So what did we do to help as an organisation? I think the NBA has worked very hard to promote BVD free. We have a weekly communication with our members. We were one of the founder members of BVD free, and we've continued to be very proactive in pushing the benefits. We continue to put short stories in our newsletter and our magazines, and we've given up our own time and other board members' time to talk directly to farmers about the benefit of following a BVD eradication program. We've had articles published of our own members and various other articles on BVD eradication republished. So we spread the word basically as hard as we can, as much as we can. And communication is a great part of any disease eradication system. I think we've seen that just again in the last 15 months. In the UK, the eradication program really was driven by breed societies, and you could argue it was also driven by the differences cross internal borders and needs must. But there was collaboration and a big drive from breed societies, particularly those with maternal breeds, to look at and eradicate endemic disease. And the ability in doing this to increasing the awareness of that to commercial farmers then led to a drive for people sourcing cattle that were free of endemic disease. And it's also been proven 10 times over that large herds who have completely eradicated BVD and now vaccinate for BVD have reduced their antibiotic usage and the need also perhaps to vaccinate in the autumn if there are spring calving for respiratory diseases. And there's another huge financial saving, obviously, in that. So this endemic disease quietly costs our industry approximately £61 million per year, or at least did till we started the eradication program. There are 61 million reasons to try and rid the UK totally, but predominantly England, of BVD and allow us to catch up with the rest of the UK. I can argue till the cows come home with anyone who says that BVD eradication is not logical and not financially sound. Thank you very much.